This is the new Xbox Series S Carbon Black that promises more than twice the storage of the original Series S, which is awesome, but it's not all good news because the release of this, along with some game-changing news, means that this may not be the console for you. So we're going to go into the good and the bad so that by the end of this video, you'll know if the Carbon Black is the right console for you. Welcome to my Tech Gear. Let's get into it. So what's good about this console? Well, first let's look at the differences compared to the original Series S. Firstly, you get double the storage of the original Series S in the Carbon Black version for only an extra $50. Now, if you wanted to double the storage of the original Series S, you need to buy a 512 gig expansion card, which would cost you $80. So in comparison, paying just an extra $50 to get the extra storage included in the Carbon Black, it's certainly a good deal. And the storage in the Carbon Black in real terms is actually more than twice the storage of the original Series S, as the extra storage is all dedicated to games. Because whilst the original Series S came with 512 gig out of the box, some of that storage was taken up by the operating system, which left only 364 gig of usable storage. In the new Carbon Black version, well, all of that extra space is taken up for the games, so you get 802 gig of usable storage. So that means you can store even more games on this console than you could on the original. If you take Gears 5 as an example, this is a game that takes up 55.1 gig of space on the Series S. So on the original Series S, you could install 6 games on the Series S before it ran out of space. However, if you go to the Carbon Black, you can install 14 games before it runs out of space. However, 55 gig is no longer a typical norm for AAA games, because if you take Starfield as an example, that game takes up 140 gig of disk space. So on the original Series S, you can only install 2 games before running out of space. On the Carbon Black, you can install 5 games. So 1 terabyte really is the base for consoles given how large games are getting these days. If you do want to expand your storage even further, then I recommend checking out the new Western Digital expansion cards. A 1 terabyte card like the one I've got here only costs $150 and is significantly cheaper than the $220 cards that Seagate originally released when the Series X and S first came out. Now, before anyone mentions it, yes, Seagate have now dropped their prices, but they've only done it because Western Digital released their cards, so Seagate have basically been overcharging us for years and getting away with it. So screw Seagate, go get a Western Digital card instead. The most noticeable difference between the versions is the colour, and I do like the new Carbon Black. It's not quite the same deep black as the Series X, which is weird. You thought they'd have made them the same colour. It's more a grey black than a proper black. Still looks pretty cool though. And as for the rest of the specs, well, it's exactly the same as the original Series S. It's physically the same size and the internal specs are the same too, so you'll be able to play games up to 1440p screen resolution and up to 120 frames per second. Now, I've already done a deep dive into the specs of the Series S, so I'll leave a link to that video at the end of this one, so you can go check that one out. But before you do, you really do need to jump into the bad that comes with the release of this console. So what is the bad? Well, firstly, it's the new price, because Microsoft addressed one of the biggest issues with the Series S, which was storage space, by increasing it to 1 terabyte on the Carbon Black edition. And $50 for the extra storage is, as I said earlier, a good price. But the fact that the price has gone up instead of the original S going down in price now causes a problem, because at $349 the Carbon Black edition is now only $50 cheaper than the PS5 Digital, and the PS5 Digital is a fully spec'd out next-gen console, just minus the disk drive, as opposed to the Series S, which isn't just a Series X without a disk drive, but it's also less powerful, so it can't run games in as high resolution, nor as fast, nor in as much detail as the Series X. So for just an extra $50 on top of the price for the Carbon Black, you can get a true next-gen console with the PS5 Digital, and upgrading storage on the PS5 is significantly cheaper compared to the bespoke expansion cards you have to buy for the Series S. So I think that is going to cause a problem for Microsoft if they don't look at a price change. And it gets worse, because that lack of power in the Series S has just been made even more obvious with the release of Baldur's Gate 3, as it's been announced that when it is released it won't have co-op split screen mode on the Series S, as it's just not powerful enough. So now we have a big problem, because we always knew that the Series S was less powerful than the Series X. If you got a Series S, you knew that you were getting a next-gen console that would run games at lower settings than the Series X, but you'd save yourself $200 in the process, and you would always be able to play the same games, because that was Microsoft's promise. But we're now finding out that that no longer holds true. And if Baldur's Gate can start stripping game features from the Series S due to hardware limitations, well, where does it end? Now, to be fair, no one actually knows the answer to that question, and it may not be a trend. But games don't get less complex, they get more complex. So I do think we're going to see this happening again, and more often. So we now have a split in the next-gen consoles, with the Series X running all games, and the Series S probably being able to run most games and features. Now, Sony don't have this problem at all, because both the PS5 and PS5 Digital have exactly the same hardware on them, minus the lack of a disk drive on the digital version, of course. So you will always be able to run all games on both versions with the same features, resolution and detail. So for just an extra $50, again, the PS5 Digital is now starting to look a lot like a better future-proof option. It's not all doom and gloom though. I do think the release of the Carbon Black Edition with the 1TB of storage was the right move, because 512 just isn't enough in modern gaming consoles. However, because we're now seeing limitations in the games and features that the Series S can support, and because the new $349 price tag is so close to the price of the PS5 Digital, I think Microsoft should have introduced the Carbon Black at the $299 the original S sold at, and dropped the price of the original Series S by $50 to $250 to make the Series S a cheap enough alternative to full next-gen consoles like the PS5 Digital. Despite that, I would still recommend the Series S Carbon Black if you're just going to be playing games on a 1080p TV or as a second console in the house. Especially if you also sign up for Game Pass Ultimate, which gives you access to hundreds of games on both your Xbox and your PC, as well as access to EA Play, cloud gaming and AAA titles like Starfield for only $16.99 a month. As a package bundle, that's pretty hard to beat. What do you think though? Are you going to go buy the Carbon Black Edition here, or buy the original, or maybe save up for a Series S, or flip and go and get a PS5 instead? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to check out an in-depth review of the Series S or how it compares to the Series X, then be sure to check out the links up here. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.